I was 24 years old with a sparkle in my eyes and a humorous mind. People had always known me to be this way, always smiling, bubbly, and honest. After graduating university with a degree in accounting, I had the difficult task of finding a job. I had no experience, and so my mom had to get creative. She bribed the dean of a city medical college, Mr. Alkash, and got me an impressive job. When people first saw me, so young and thin, they questioned how I could do the job that had been a burden for their previous CFO for years. Soon, everyone started calling me the financial goddess, as I was in charge of getting money from headquarters and deciding how to spend it. This job gave me many unique benefits, such as not having to wait in long lines to shop, having the college chef bring food to my office, and being able to buy plane or train tickets to any destination, as well as getting consultations from the best doctors and access to any medication. Though, at the time, I was too young to realize how privileged I was and that these treats were only for me. It was customary for people to steal from their workplace. Salespeople would not give the correct change to customers, or not give them any change at all. Factory workers would steal products from the factory and sell them on the black market. Teachers accepted bribes from students to let them cheat on exams. Doctors gave wrong diagnoses in order to get money under the table for unnecessary treatments. Accountants would make fraudulent transactions in ledgers and withdraw money from cashier registers. Though I was still too young to understand, my parents raised me to be honest and uncompromising. I never considered using my power for personal gain. Whenever an audit would come, everyone at the college would get nervous, but I never understood why. The auditor was always taken aback by my fearlessness, not realizing I had no reason to be scared as I had done nothing wrong. The only problem I encountered was with Mr. Alkash. He was an alcoholic, and people said he was fond of womanizing. He was in his 60s, and it was rumored that he drank heavily. I never saw him drunk, and I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't witnessed him stealing spirits from the medical lab. As he was my boss, I felt obligated to cover for him. People also said that the college driver was frequently taking the dean on love affairs around the city and was involved in these activities too. If I hadn't seen the unreasonably high auto expenses the driver presented for reimbursement, signed by the dean, I wouldn't have believed the rumors. The dean and I had a good relationship. He never put me in jeopardy and always trusted my judgment. Despite the unreasonably high spirit and auto expenses, the auditors never raised any flags because they were members of the same society. I suspected that the dean had bribed them to keep quiet, but I never witnessed it. I was grateful for his trust and never questioned any of the rumors about his personal life. We had a mutual understanding without needing to use words, which I valued greatly. I had been working as a CFO for 2 years when our headquarters moved to the Ministry of Health. Myself and the dean were chosen to take a business trip to Kiev, Ukraine to present our college. At the college, many of my colleagues looked at me with fear and envy. I was about to meet the Minister of Ukraine, and although I had a certain air of pride and apprehension, I knew it was just a business meeting. I was soon to be taught a valuable lesson about the realities of the world. Mr. Alkash and I boarded our train and took a compartment. Usually, these compartments seated 4 people, but we had it all to ourselves. It was night time, so I settled into bed. "Good night, Mr. Alkash," I said, closing my eyes and turning over to get more comfortable.
"Lou, what would you do if I touched you?"
the dean asked, suddenly. I jolted awake, my eyes wide with surprise, unable to say anything. I was speechless, and my face went pale.
"Will you scream?"
He persisted, waiting for my reaction. "Yes," I stammered uncertainly.
"Too bad. If you don't yell, I can give you something special. I have a few golden watches at home. I'm quite a fan of watches. Here, look."
He removed a golden watch from his wrist and handed it to me. I had never held a gold watch in my hands before and had no interest in it whatsoever. He was a bit disappointed at my lack of enthusiasm.
Do you have a golden watch?
No, I said shortly.
Do you want one?
No, I looked away, unable to maintain eye contact.
All right.
He realized he was wasting his time.
You are too young. He who is not young is not a fool.
He concluded.
Good night.
I was greatly relieved when he turned over to the other side. In the morning, the train arrived to Kiev, and we took a bus to the Ministry of Health. We got off the bus at the marvelous park with tall oaks providing pleasant, inviting shade. There was a liquor store at the entrance to the park. Suddenly, Mr. Alkash asked me to buy him a small bottle of cognac. I had never bought cognac before, but I said yes anyway. When I walked into the liquor store, I quickly realized that there were no small bottles, only big ones. I went back outside. The smallest bottle is 1/4 of a gallon, I explained to my dean.
Excellent.
He was so excited, but I got nervous. It costs $25. I blurted out, feeling a knot of anxiety in my stomach. That's 1/4 of my monthly salary. I thought to myself in despair. Yet, I had no choice but to buy it. I went back to the store and emerged shortly with a bottle in my hands. Mr. Alkash was waiting for me, staying out of sight behind a tree, fearful that someone would spot him near the liquor store. When I approached him, he took the bottle from my hands, opened it, poured around 200 grams into his mouth, swallowed it with apparent pleasure, closed the bottle, and returned it to me.
Put it in your bag,
he said. I was shocked. How could he do this without gagging or making a sour face? It was like he was sipping lemonade. I placed the bottle in my bag, doing the calculations in my head. He drank around 1/5 of the entire bottle of cognac. I still have $20 left. I had no idea who would drink the rest of the cognac after him. How naive of me! When we approached the Ministry of Health, Mr. Alkash pulled me to the side of the sidewalk, hid behind a tree and, once again, asked me to give him a bottle. He poured another 200 grams into his mouth, savoring the taste before swallowing it. Then, he closed the bottle and handed it back to me, leaving only 600 grams of cognac left. Goodness me, I thought with disappointment. Only $15 remain. The presentation went fast and smooth. First, Mr. Alkash disappeared behind the Minister of Ukraine's office door, and in about 10 minutes they emerged, embracing each other like brothers, despite having only just met. The minister then invited me in, and I began to talk about the college's financial performance. However, the Minister of Ukraine didn't seem to be paying attention. Instead, he was fixated on my knees, making me feel uncomfortable.
She is so young. Now I see what you were talking about, Alex. Good. Good.
The minister interrupted me.
Good job. Very good. Keep it up. I'm going to give you a present for the job you are doing.
Oh God, is it another gold watch? I thought, anxiously. Thankfully it was not. He gave me a beautiful pen and notebook, with rich gold engravings of USSR. Then he shook my hand, staring at my breasts. I have spent so much time working on this presentation and putting in a lot of effort, practicing in front of the mirror to demonstrate how amazing our college is. Though the minister didn't care about any of these, all he seemed to want to do was undress me with his eyes. In the former Soviet Union, good work and effort was not in demand. Instead, bribery and debauchery were favored. My initial enthusiasm quickly melted away, disappointed at the lack of opportunity to present what I had planned. We then made our way to the ministry's cafeteria. I was astonished by the food they served there, which I would usually only be able to afford during a holiday, but here they could eat it every day for an extremely low price. The dean went to join some of the other older people, while I took pleasure in every bite and enjoyed the moment by myself. There was nothing else to do in the ministry, and I was about to leave the building, as somebody grabbed my bag from behind. I spun around to find Mr. Alcash behind a post, rummaging through my bag. I watched as he went through the same motions, opened, poured, swallowed, closed, put it back in my bag. I was becoming increasingly frustrated, thinking, damn my remaining $10. You can have it, I said, wanting nothing more than for him to just take the bottle and leave.
No, you keep it,
he replied, handing me back my bag and informing me that he was going to meet some of his friends. I spent the rest of the day exploring the city streets, admiring the stunning architecture, breathtaking landscapes, parks and gardens, and incredible monuments. I was still carrying the almost empty bottle in my bag. It took up a lot of space and I was tempted to throw it away, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. We arrived back at the train station at 9 p.m.
How was your day?
The dean asked. All right, I said, not wanting to give away too much. What about yours?
Oh, I went to my friends and we had 8 bottles of beer, 2 bottles of vodka, and 2 bottles of cognac,
he said, puffing out his chest. Just the two of you? I asked, raising an eyebrow.
Yes. Just the 2 of us.
He replied with bravado. Oh boy. You must be feeling pretty good right now, I said, smiling at him. He didn't seem to be intoxicated, so I wasn't sure if he was telling the truth. But soon I realized he had been honest. As soon as we entered the compartment, he grabbed my bag without asking and finished off the rest of the cognac. There was no need to put the bottle back into my bag, as it was empty. My $25 are gone. I thought to myself, feeling a bit dejected. That was the drop that made his day and my first experience of having fun with an alcoholic. At that time, we had to share the compartment with 2 other men, but they had not arrived yet when the action began. Our tickets showed that we had to occupy one side of the compartment with 2 beds, one above the other.
Would you like to sleep on the top or the bottom bed?
Mr. Alcash asked me, and I noticed that his speech wasn't quite normal. I'll take the upper one, I replied.
No, no, no. I'm going to sleep up there. What? Do you think I'm not a gentleman? I am.
And now he spoke as a true drunk as I saw on TV.
What? You don't trust me? You think I'll fall off the bed?
That's all right, Mr. Alcash, I said.
No, no, no.
He attempted to get up, but failed as he tried to move from sitting to standing.
Okay, then you can go up, if you really want to.
He changed his mind. I climbed onto the table to make my bed. As I was trying to adjust the far corner, standing on my tiptoes, Mr. Alcash suddenly asked,
Lou, do you want me?
I was taken aback by the unexpected question, and I lost my balance and came crashing down on the floor, scraping my leg above my knee. Ouch! I exclaimed, automatically rubbing my knee under my skirt.
Oh, come to me, baby,
Mr. Alcash said, grabbing my blouse and pulling me to him. No! I shouted, pushing him away and hitting my head on the bottom of the upper bunk while trying to get up. I managed to get on the table again, but before I could climb to my bed, he suddenly grabbed my leg.
Lou, do you want me?
No! I yelled, surprised by my own rudeness towards my boss.
Good, because I feel bad.
He concluded, still hanging onto my leg like it was a post. I shook my leg, trying to get out of his grip, but it didn't help. Mr. Alcash just held on tighter. I stood on one leg, trying to free the other, but I kept slipping and losing my balance until I eventually ended up on the floor. The dean was pulled by my leg and fell right on top of me, his head landing on my stomach.
It's so soft,
he said, looking up and burping into my face. God, you are disgusting, I said, struggling to get up. The floor was too small for 2 people, and we had to get up one by one. Mr. Alkash, however, seemed unable and unwilling to move. He shifted his body closer to me, being unsure if he was on top of me or on top of his lover Tina, our college's political leader.
Tina, honey, do you want me?
He slurred, attempting to press his lips against my face. You idiot! Stop it! I yelled, but it was in vain. I tried with all my might to escape from underneath his smelly, sweaty body, but he was too heavy for me to move. He didn't restrain me, but he didn't help me either. All he did was keep moving closer to me, trying to reach my face with his wet, slimy lips, while I kept moving away, trying to avoid his smelly breath. In the end, I found myself stuck underneath him.
What's going on here?
A merry voice sounded from above me. Could you help me, please? I squeaked pitifully, unable to move Mr. Alkash.
Sure.
The voice answered cheerfully, and suddenly Mr. Alkash felt light and was moved to the lower bed.
Let me go.
Mr. Alkash shouted angrily.
Do you know who I am? Ha!
Another man appeared in the doorway at that moment.
And you rubbish.
Mr. Alkash said, turning to him.
Do you know who I am? I was at the Ministry of Kia. Minister kissed me.
Taking advantage of the situation, I quickly got up and left the room, with the first man following me and closing the door behind him. The second man was still trying to organize his luggage, still listening to Mr. Alkash's rambling. Please, don't touch him, I said to the man who had helped me, smiling. He doesn't know what he is doing. He's drunk.
Yeah, I can tell.
He replied, laughing.
But what were you doing under this Hercules?
He chuckled. I had accidentally fallen and my dean had fallen on top of me, I explained, making a very naive expression on my face, perfectly aware that it was going to be very entertaining.
Oh. You're Dean.
He laughed harder and a huge blue vein popped up on his forehead.
I'm sorry, I didn't know he was your boss. How did you make him so drunk that he fell on you?
He couldn't breathe as he asked me. I didn't do anything. I replied, batting my eyelashes and curling my lips into a bow. I just bought him 1 bottle of cognac, like he asked. But then, he drank 2 bottles of vodka, 8 bottles of beer, and 2 more bottles of cognac at his friend's house. The guy stifled a laugh.
He is a dog.
He cried out as his tears started to roll down his cheeks.
And after all, he was able to climb on you.
His face had gone pale, and his neck turned bright red, like a lobster. Just then, the door of our compartment opened and another guy came out.
This isn't funny, comrades.
He said sternly. Oh, yes. It is. The funny guy couldn't stop laughing. He made a patriotic expression on his face and asked me with a threatening tone.
I'm wondering, what company this drunk belongs to, and where do you work, comrade?
The laughter suddenly stopped in confused silence. The funny guy wiped sweat from his face and neck.
Well, of course it's not funny to have these kinds of people in our Soviet society.
He pointed at the dean.
I'm laughing at something absolutely different. Right?
He looked at me, hoping to find some support. He didn't know yet that, aside from my regular job, I was a performer. Yes, of course. I said, as if we had really talked about something different. I lost my watch this morning, in the train on our way here. And then I came this evening and looked everywhere, and guess what? I found it! Can you believe it? I found it in the bathroom under the toilet. I showed my watch to the patriot. He glanced at me with irritation. Do you want to know the funny part? I laughed loudly.
No, I don't.
The patriot was trying to change the subject. But I didn't let him to change the subject that easily. No, You've got to listen to this. I playfully pushed him on his shoulder. It's so funny. The funny guy looked at me with his mouth open. He didn't expect me to act this way, and was eagerly awaiting to hear what I was going to say.
It's okay, you don't have to tell me.
The patriot replied, utterly irritated. He turned his back to me and asked the funny guy, interrupting me right in the middle of my sentence.
Do you know who this guy is, comrade?
I didn't give the funny guy a chance to answer. Of course I know, I declared confidently. He is the General Secretary of KPFS. I could tell the patriot was regretting his behavior. You piece of crap. Nobody interrupts me while I speak, and nobody turns their back to me. I thought to myself.
KPFS? What is this?
He asked, with an uncertain tone in his voice. KPFS? I replied, in a threatening tone. I could see the transformation in the patriot's face. He had no idea he was dealing with an actor and CFO of a big company, someone who regularly deals with a lot of people. For 2 years I had been in my position, and I had learned to use a more authoritative tone if the situation required it. I thought sarcastically to myself, you stupid jerk. You want to know who he is, but first let me show you who I am. This is the first time I've ever met someone who doesn't know what KPFS is, I said, my voice taking on more of a threatening quality. What about you? I asked the funny guy, my tone still the same. I crossed my fingers that he was smart enough to pick up on my cue. He was.
Of course I know. Everyone knows.
He said, though he clearly had no idea what I was talking about. Well, I said, exhaling in relief. I was on a roll. I think the best course of action is for me to take your information and report it to my superiors at KPFS so that we can send a representative to your company for further political education, I said, turning to face the patriot. Just stay here and I'll be right back. I stepped into the compartment to get my bag. Oh God, it stinks here. I thought, but controlled the expression on my face. I removed the pen and the notebook that the minister presented me with from my bag, getting ready to write down the information about the guy, and got outside. The golden letters USSR were shining from the notebook cover, giving the patriot goosebumps. What's your name, comrade? I said seriously, turning the notebook for him to see better. The patriot turned pale.
Goat butt.
And with this kind of name you are going to challenge me? I thought with sarcasm. Name of your company, please, and the address? And what is your position? I got all the information he had to offer, to make him feel tense. I knew that he wouldn't be able to figure out the truth before we arrived to the city. The truth was that there was no such thing as KPFS, it was just a fabrication that sounded similar to KPSS. I gave him the information he didn't want to receive. Please, report to KPFS, at 1 Patriot Avenue, 5th floor, room 521 not later than 10 days after you receive a letter from us. The patriot nodded, seemingly in shock. I went back to the compartment and sighed with relief as the train slowly started moving. We stepped back into our compartment. It was not easy, as the compartment was filled with the stench of alcohol. The drunken dean was trying to take off his clothes, howling, bubbling saliva, and cursing at the world. I quickly climbed onto my bed, covered my nose with a towel to breathe through, closed my eyes, and tried to fall asleep, but it was impossible. For the first 10 minutes, Mr. Alkash fought with his jacket, trousers, and tie. When the fight was over and he undressed himself, he started to take off his socks and underwear. He couldn't decide which piece of clothing to take off first, and the funny guy jumped from his upper bunk to help. For the next several minutes they both fought for my dean's underwear.
There is a young lady here. Don't you understand, you idiot?
The funny guy tried to convince my dean, though this argument didn't help.
Is she pretty?
The dean was curious.
Tina A? Where are you?
Mr. Alcash was pulling his underwear in all directions with one hand and fighting the funny guy with another.
Hey man! What are you doing? You already took it off. You are trying to put it on. Just keep it the way it is.
Yay? Oh, I know.
The dean finally agreed.
I don't want them on. Do you understand?
Yes. I do. Just lie down over here and try to get some sleep, without your underwear.
You think I'm an idiot. Ha! I was drinking with the minister. And I gave him a golden watch. Do you have a golden watch?
Yes, I do.
You do?
The dean got emotional again.
Show me. You have crap. I have a golden watch.
Yes, you are right. I don't have a golden watch. I have crap, all right. Just stay here.
The dean finally settled down on his lower bunk and all three of us hoped that he would be quiet. However, it was only the start of the night. None of us slept that night as Mr. Alcash put on the best show I had ever seen. He groaned and snored, coughed and burped, farted and vomited, sweated and urinated, spat and sneezed, cursed and yelled, and fell off his bed and climbed back on, often mixing up his own bed with the Patriots. He sang his songs and told us his stories, and by the morning we knew all the members of his extended family by name, the names of all his girlfriends, the years they broke up, the number of his gold watches and the names of all the people he bribed with his gold watches. This list extended far beyond the Ministry of Health, encompassing people from the audit department, the government, and even some Communist Party leaders and women of different ages. The dean also revealed where he had gotten the watches from. He had been bribed by the parents of prospective students to get them accepted into the college. He had a lot of gold watches. It was quite an educational night for me as a young and somewhat naive person. I learned a lot. He eventually fell asleep at 5 in the morning, his head resting under the table on the floor and his legs on the Patriot's bed. He was covered with his own mattress, which he had used as a blanket. The Patriot had spent the night sitting in the corridor, as the entire floor was covered in vomit and urine. At 7 in the morning, Mr. Alcash woke up as if nothing had happened. He didn't speak to anyone, put on his clothes, and headed for the train exit. Before leaving, he gave me the day off and I went home. On the first working day after our business trip, Mr. Alcash came to my office and placed a 25-ruble bill on my desk. He simply said, "Thanks," and then left. I never took another business trip with him. Mr. Alcash's died from a heart attack 1 year after our trip. He had been a great boss and I was truly sorry to see him go. Tina assumed his role as leader of the college after his death. She was a different kind of leader than Mr. Alcash had been, and when the dean asked her if she wanted a gold watch, she confidently answered, yes. She had been a political leader of the college during Mr. Alcash's life, and she easily stepped into his role after his death, taking advantage of the opportunity presented to her by the Minister of Health. Tina was a good boss to me and I worked for her for many years after.